So welcome to the Delicious Recap. Today I'm Coco Goff.
Coco Gauff, who is that? And are they in Family Matters?
So Coco Goff is a black tennis player. She's 20 years old. She's the second best tennis player in the world, and she's in the Olympics. So I'm
I
very
figured.
excited.
Okay, full disclosure, we'll be releasing this to you guys in like October. So right now we're recording this in July, where the Paris Olympics is a thing right now. Yeah, I had a feeling it was about the Olympics. So what about her makes her a special player?
She is 20 years old. She's black, and she is the second best tennis player in the world. She has a fast game. She knows how to get the points, close sets and matches. And I mean, to be that amazing at 20, that she's already the second best in the world, I'm just like, beat this first girl. And I don't know who the first person is. I just know that their name is spelled Iga. I hope it's Iga. I think they're from Denmark, but she's got to beat them. And I'm excited for this.
Awesome. You know, what I love about the Olympics is that it always comes up with the inspiring like backstories of all these players. I mean, I'm going back to maybe like the 2008 Summer Olympics. I think that's when Michael Phelps was a big deal. And remember during the time, remember when it was such a big deal that he was smoking weed at a party, like when the tabloids caught that? And now I'm looking at that many years later and I'm like, really? Like, because weed is so mainstream? Like we acted like he was like, snorting coke.
Yeah, people were like, "Oh my God, this man smokes the devil's lettuce." And then they did the same thing to Sha'Carri Richardson, and I was like, "Really? It's just
Yeah.
weed."
Oh my God, it was so insane. But nonetheless, I mean, he was a fantastic swimmer, and surprisingly, I had family over the weekend. We're recording this on a Monday, and it was a very busy, productive weekend. I'll let you know about that in the post show. But I thought that I was gonna just put the TV on and they would want to see the Paris Olympics, but we paid no mind to the Olympics at all. And these are family members that usually are pretty attentive to the Summer Olympics, so. It was really strange just only like seeing a random news article here and there as my exposure to what's happening in Paris.
Yeah, we'll talk about it later. I'm with you there because there's a lot to talk about. There's a poop protest. There's all these things that happened with this Olympics that I found out that I'm like, wow, the fun is outside of the Olympics this year.
Oh my God, I cannot wait. Well, you're this fabulous tennis player. I'm just my usual boring old stressed out John Francois. And what episode are we recapping this week? I'm excited about this for Family Matters.
Today, we're recapping season two, episode three, Marriage 101.
Yeah. Original air date, September 28th, 1990. Sally Lapidus and Pamela Eels, the two women writing team that were trying to get on the show, they wrote this episode. Rich Carell directs it. Guest stars Susan Krebs as Miss Steuben. Ugh. That teacher does not like her job. Sherry Johnson makes her debut as Maxine. That's wonderful, but it could have been better. And Clint Hyson as Mark Healy. He says exactly one word towards the end of the episode. And it's up to you, Andrew. I mean, I know that we have another version of a rating system that we want to include. So it's up to you. Do you want me to say the Hulu synopsis really quickly before we announce that, or
Yes,
do we want to wait till the end? Or
yes. Give her Hulu synopsis now, because I always love to hear what is in the synopsis, and this is going to help with the rating system as well.
this synopsis is strange. Get ready for this. This was
Mm.
somebody who just did not know how to edit. To her horror, Laura gets paired with Steve for a class project in which the participants pretend they are married. Harriette is depressed because Carl takes her for dot 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 dot. That's what it says on Hulu. So I think what happened was someone who was in charge of the summary wrote a too long summary and Hulu could not get it all. So now it just looks like Harriet is depressed because Carl takes her for dot 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 dot. Oh, what happens? Takes her for what? For her money? Like it just seems like this random suspense thing.
It's somebody who wrote this wrote soap operas because they leave you on a cliffhanger of like what is about to happen to Harriet.
Yeah, I and honestly, if she gets shot by J.R. Ewing from Dallas, I'm all for it. I'm all for it. Those of you who are fans of Dallas like I am, you kind of know where I'm going with that. But yeah, that's our synopsis. And yeah, please feel free to announce what we're doing at the end of the show. I can't wait to do this.
So at the end of the show, which by the way, y'all, this episode aired on my birthday. So this is a
Oh,
special episode for me.
two, were you two at the time?
I was 2 years old at the time. This is my second birthday.
And do you remember doing anything special?
No, I don't remember two because I think I got hit in the head with an iron.
Okay. You know what? This is another version of how you and I are like these weird spirit brothers because I think around the same age, I thought it would be a great idea to iron my arm. And you can imagine how much that might have hurt as a child when I found out that wasn't a good idea. And I think I have a little mark on my arm to this day from that. But yeah, no, my mom would tell me, like, yeah, you just thought that, it would be a good idea to, get the wrinkles out of your little black skin there.
Oh my gosh, John, you were pressed in a good way.
Oh, God, I was pressed by the Lord to not do that again.
Look, you learned and it stuck with you, just like our rating system. I think we'll stick with our listeners. Um,
Yes. Yeah.
So we've gone through episodes and we've had our appetizer, what really like brought us into the show, our entree, which is like the main course that really gave us our filling throughout the show, and then our desserts, those little highlights where you're like, yes, I like this, I like this, and then our junk food where it's really inconsequential. It could not be in the episode according to us, and we would be perfectly fine. So I want to take that and revamp it towards the end of our episode where we're still going to talk about those parts of our dish because this is a whole meal, but we can rate this on a star system. So the stars are like Michelin stars, but we're going to call them delicious stars. And we rate them from 0 to 3. Our rating that comes into play here is this actually worth watching as an episode? So we're looking at the quality of the production. We want the mastery of the delivery of the lines and emotion. Does the vibe fit for the scene? How is the casting for the scene? Do these characters actually match up well with each other? Are they playing off each other's energy? Like the things that we focus on in the show.
Mhm.
And then do you feel like this was like a value of your time to actually watch? Or did it waste your time? And then the final part of it, do we have any common grounds? Is there anything you and me, John, can relate to about this episode? Is there anything where we're like, okay, that was funny? Or, oh God, that tasted like vomit?
Ew. Don't say that. I've had dogs vomiting a lot lately here because they've had kennel cough. So I've
Oh
been
no.
I yeah they're getting better. They're getting better, thank God. But like if you want to define gross in the dictionary, it's continually hearing your dogs coughing and vomiting, and then they proceed to lick the vomit because they're dogs and they're stupid. So, yeah. So when you say vomit, it just kind of has that like PTSD effect on me right now.
Oh no. Okay. Okay, we'll
Yeah.
say it tastes bad.
Thank you. I like that.
But our highest of the ratings is 3 stars. So, thin episode, if you think this was a perfect episode, if you feel like this episode was an exceptional use of your time and you loved it, give it 3 stars. If it was maybe excellent, it wasn't the best, but it was not bad, 2 stars. You would actually take the time to watch it. And then one is going to be, it was a good episode and it's respectful for the season, but you probably want to go back and watch it.
Hmm.
And 0, it wasn't worth your time.
Well, good thing we're not in season 8 of Family Matters because it's zero, 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 zero.
Oh, you just triggered mine. That episode. Oh my gosh, with the teleporter. That was so hard to get through.
Which one? I mean, I feel like there's going to be a lot of teleporter episodes later on.
There's going to be teleporters and transformations and green ooze. And
But for now, it's still the show that we love, so that's great.
we're in the loving era. We are in our honeymoon phase of Family Matters.
Yes.
Okay, so let's start it off.
Yeah.
We finally got a cold open again.
Yeah. I love it. What did you think about the cold open?
The cold open was an interesting one. And I'm going to just start it off now. My cold open is my dessert. It is the first time ever.
Really? Why is it because it's the first cold open of the season, or was it like much deeper than that?
No, it is much deeper than that. I was not expecting to like it as much as I did until I rewatched it about the fourth time. And I was like, oh, I like this cold open. It was funny. We get Steve and Eddie together in a scene. Steve is being wrapped up in bandages, like he's been destroyed by one of his own accidents.
Right.
But Eddie's practicing first aid. Did you catch that?
Yes, so Steve very much looked like a mummy being wrapped up in bandages like that. I automatically wondered how long it took for whoever behind the scenes to strap up Jaleel like that, because that is a lot of work to completely wrap someone up like that. Was Jaleel's temperature very hot being wrapped up in all those bandages? And I think there was, if there was any moment that stood out to me in that short cold open, I think it was like when Steve says he has experience in first aid from the day he got a nosebleed from the doctor slapping the wrong end. And I was like, wait a minute, should I be more concerned about Steve's ease of bleeding? Should I be concerned about the professionalism of the doctor? That was a question that was rolling around in my head during that moment.
My question was, how is this doctor credentialed? You didn't know the feet and the head apart. That was the part that got me. I was like, what?
Yeah. Yeah. Is this like a kind of Dr. Wu guy who is an allergist, but somehow thinks it's a fun time to be friends with a young teenager? Like, what kind of medical help does Steve have in his life? It's very concerning.
Steve is a science experiment. I believe he got broke out of a lab, and Herb and Diane are just the lab people who were supposed to take care of him.
Pretty much. I would not argue against that. And I I think the other thing that stood out to me, I'm still in love with Eddie's high top fade. I think I saw the back of his head really for the first time in this cold open. And I like the line from his high top fade that goes around to the back. It almost seemed like he had a ponytail for a second, by the way the hair was designed. I don't know if you picked up on that.
It looked like he had a rat tail for a moment, where I was like, is there like a little tail there? But I actually rewound it and I was like, okay, there's nothing there.
It's insane. And I think it was very fitting that the cold open ended with I think Carl was coming home from work, looking through the junk mail, and he sees Steve just talking away as he would be, wrapped up in bandages, being like, "Ah, Carl, old buddy, old pal, how's my pal on patrol? How's my man with the plan?" And Carl is just like, I don't even want to deal with this. He doesn't even say anything. He just wraps a tape across Steve's mouth and just walks by. I love it. It pretty much sums up the Carl Steve relationship.
It does. He's like, nobody's being hurt, nobody's injured. Let's just cover this mouth and keep it pushing.
Yeah. Anything else that you found lovely about this cold open? I mean, what?
There
So
is.
was it the bandaged part that made your dessert? Like, what was the whole scope of it?
No, it wasn't the bandage part. It was actually the fact that Eddie was saying he was practicing first aid and he was going to go get plaster that made that joke funnier for me.
Mm.
But what actually got me in the scene, this is the first time, and I went back and watched every single code opening today to make sure that I heard what I heard correctly. At the end of the cold opening, there's this weird piano playoff that we have never gotten from any other cold opening that led into the opening music. And I thought it was really beautiful. So
Really?
that is what like grabbed my attention.
Okay. All right. Well, there you go. Thank you, Family Matters music production team, for stepping up your game.
They did. We didn't get this chop transition. It was just a fun moment. Everybody in the scene played off of each other very well. So this is my favorite cold opening so far.
And of the all the episodes that we watched so far, that's a high bar.
Yes. I thought to compare to all the other ones, this is my favorite one, and I feel like it's the best one we've seen so far.
Okay. All right. Well, hey, that's all I got for the cold open. I mean, no surprise, it's Rich Corral. So the last thing I thought about that cold open was, oh, very quick, very concise, just gets to the point, gets to the heart of the comedic matter, and then we move on to the opening credits.
We did. We moved on. So I always have trouble breaking down scenes. So if I am a scene ahead or behind,
Yeah, you're
I
fine.
may need your help. The only thing when watching it, I had to subscribe to Hulu again because watching it from the website I watched, they cut out like four scenes of the show for some reason.
Oh.
So it's very weird. But scene one, I know this had to be the same for you. Harriet walks in this bomb ass pink polka dot dress.
So you're talking about the dark cherry fudge ice cream date night dress? Is that what she opens with in scene one as she coming down the stairs? She's ready for the romantic date night. Like literally, I thought,
Mhm.
oh, this is ice cream that I tasted the other day from the grocery store. Harriet seems to be having this thread of dressing in things that I ate in my mouth and were cold.
Oh my God.
I just wanted to
Okay.
stress it was cold. It was cold, just so I made it family friendly.
I mean, that is like the best way to describe fashion. It's like a meal. You just ate it. I loved it. When I saw it, that and now she has this, I call it the black mom mullet. Like my mom had that hairstyle before where it's kind of
Okay.
like short and fluffy in the front and then you got some longness in the back.
Yeah, so the black mom mullet, the dark cherry fudge ice cream date night dress, which I might add, that's my appetizer. I was like, whoa, like literally I said damn to my computer as I was watching that part. I thought Harriet was a showstopper, and I think that the way her husband eventually treats her, shame on him. You cannot knock a vixen like that.
Yes, that is actually my appetizer. Carl not acknowledging this beautiful freaking dress that's in front of him right now as we get into the scene.
Yeah.
Um, but we got Harriet. She's coming down. She's prepared for date night. Rachel and Mama Winslow are in the scene, aren't they?
I believe so. Laura is in the scene, and I want to ask you because she looked pretty much like Tyron Perry did in the party episode. Like just the whole country vibe, the hairstyle. That you didn't get that vibe. I got very much Tyron Perry vibes when she was Eddie's
From
love interest in the
Laura.
party. Yeah, for Laura in that scene. In that scene.
You know what? I got Tyron Perry vibes. Did she have on Fringe? Did I miss Laura in Fringe?
Yeah, is so I was struggling to find the word that you were talking about for that episode, and yes, I think that's what it is. So yes, if you look again, it's very much country farm girl fringe that she's sporting. So that was
Okay.
interesting. And maybe and perhaps because Tyron is Jamie's sister, Tyron's was on the set a lot. Maybe Kelly Williams just had some influence and decided to incorporate that in this episode.
I can see that because in this episode, except for once we get to, I think, the second to last scene or the final scene, her fashion is definitely more kid friendly, but like pop kid friendly.
Mm, mm.
Now, in this scene, we've got not Laura, Harriet getting ready for her date with Carl, and Carl coming in completely missing this beautiful dress. But there's a couple moments where I'm like, this would be the perfect date night. So Harriet was hoping for tickets to Les Mis, which is an amazing musical.
Yeah, yeah. No, I'm getting it confused for the dinner that she wants to have at Chez Josephine, but that's later, right?
That's later, yes.
Okay, okay. So for now, she wants to go to Les Mis, and I believe Carl is so set on going to this hockey game.
He's set on the hockey game. Mama Winslow was hoping for Janet Jackson, I think.
Yeah, I think Laura was like, "Oh my God, MC Hammer." Now, for that moment, I was wondering if you thought was what I was thinking, like because the way that Mama Winslow was like, "Wait, his MC Hammer tickets?" and Laura was like, "Oh, is it Janet Jackson tickets?" Or
Yes,
it almost seemed like they were gonna go along too, like it wasn't gonna be just a date between Carl and Harriet, like it was gonna be a whole family date night out.
I think they were excited and hopeful that they could get like a plus one. I mean, for Janet Jackson, I'm doing it. I'm asking my parents if I can go.
You know what? The Rhythm Nation cannot be denied.
It can't be. It can't be. So a little fan moment there, but Carl coming in and going to a hockey game. John, have you ever been to a hockey game before?
No, I've always kind of wanted to go, and I've seen the interesting violence that can happen to it through like brief TV clips, but no, I've never actually attended a full game in person. How about you?
I've been to a few. I've been to a
Ooh.
few as a kid and as an
Mhm.
adult. And as a kid, it's so much fun because you're like, whoa, these people are about to beat the crap out of each other on the ice. And then you see a hockey game too, like you hear the puck and all that stuff. As an adult, it's more about the game, which
Yeah.
I still don't understand. I don't get it, but I do know that it's fast paced and they move. So it's pretty fun to watch if you want something fun to watch. But I just didn't see when you imagine someone going to a hockey game, what do you imagine them wearing?
Honestly, I imagine them dressing like a Canadian in winter. You know what I mean? Like just having the long, like thick jersey that goes down to their knees almost, the baggy jeans, the winter hat. Like I just because Canada and hockey are so synonymous, that's kind of what I imagine them dressing like. Harriet, of course, did not know that she was going to a hockey game. So I would love to see her show up in that fantastic thing of an outfit amongst the very casually dressed hockey crowd.
I mean, she would have been stuck out. She would have had fun. I thought what would have been perfect was her little sweatsuit with those high heels that she had on the first season.
Not even at least putting on the sneakers. Like you want her to have the full sweatsuit and the high heels. No matter how difficult it is to walk through those bleachers, like you want her to strut it.
Harriet is a high heel type of person. I
Yeah.
feel like if she walks with her heels on the ground, she'll be like, I'm like further away from the Lord. So I want her in high heels at this hockey game everywhere.
Oh my God, it's awesome. Anything else that stuck out to you for this scene?
No, not for me. Was there anything you thought about the scene?
Yeah, so I we got another Carter administration reference when Harriet tells Rachel that her and Carl haven't had a romantic dinner date since the Carter administration. Remember, like back in the first season, Rodney made a Carter administration joke, and that seems to be like a crutch for Family Matters writers if they want to reference how old something is. So there you go. And I think too, to my point on that. Uh, Rachel being the third wheel. Remember when she was the third wheel during like the beginning stages of Rachel's date? Might have had something to do with the fact that Carl and Harriet feel like they haven't had a romantic date since the Carter administration. So Rachel being present in that scene for all that activity was an interesting thing to point out for myself. I do notice that we are following a sitcom trope. This is not the first time that I've seen the whole thing of like, oh, the wife wants to be romantic, have some nice quality time with the husband, do the dinner, do the movie, but the husband wants to do sports. He wants to have a beer with the guys. And like, it's something that I've seen before. So this is a trope that we're playing on. And it's very clear, that there needs to be better 50-50 communication and consideration between Carl and Harriet, their interests, and how they could balance that out. We're going to learn that throughout the episode. And last thing, oh my God, I gotta commend Carl/Reginald Vell Johnson on his ducking skills. Remember when Harriet was in the kitchen? Carl is just obliviously in this excitement rage in the living room about like the hockey, and Harriet angrily goes to the kitchen, and unseen from the kitchen, she just chucks, was it a shoe or a purse at Carl?
I think it was her purse.
Okay. And Carl, like, boom, like he ducked like well timed. Like it could have hit him like very easily, but I gotta commend Reginald for maybe rehearsing that with Joe Marie and not getting hurt, because who knows what could have happened. I mean, he could have been as hurt as Harriet eventually was by that hockey puck later on.
I mean, he's from Die Hard. He's got the action. He knew what to do. It
There you
was
go.
a. I forgot about her throwing the purse, and that actually is going to be added to my dessert now because that made me laugh.
I bet, I bet. So yeah, that's all that I got for scene one, and I'm so excited about scene two because we go into the classroom and we have a debut of a certain reoccurring character.
We do. So, scene two, we get to the classroom, and I am very upset about how they introduced Maxine. Um, I think it was so lazy how she was introduced into the scene. I'm like, we could have actually made their friendship a little more dynamic and had full dialogue between her and Laura or something.
They kind of a spoiler alert. Junk food is the way they debuted Maxine. I think that given how important her friendship is to Laura throughout the show, they didn't really do her a good service in this debut. She just seems like, oh, one of the many background actors or very little speaking actors. Now, an argument can be made that when Maxine first debuted, she wasn't really thought of like as this regular recurring character like an Urkel. But I don't know. I would have wanted better still. Um, but yeah, no, we get in, and God, I mean, I'm curious about your thoughts about the way Steve entered in this scene. Um, what did you think of that moment of slapstick comedy? Because I think he anxiously runs into the classroom as the bell rings because he doesn't want to tardy, and he somehow runs into that. What is that slideshow thing on the board called?
I think it was just a map, like the thing that pulls down.
Yeah, I know it's called a map, but what is it like? What do you call that thing that rolls down like that? Like, is it just
And we had those at my school, and I actually don't know.
Okay. Well, I don't know. Anyway, he runs into that slideshow thing on the board and it hangs him by the pants and it pulls him up to the ceiling where he's also holding the American flag. And now Steve is just holding the flag like a stiff soldier as the students just get up and recite the Pledge of Allegiance as if this is a normal sight to see. Like, yes, like the audience, I think the audience was applauding that successful choreography, but automatically I was like, what? What just happened? I just felt like a freight train almost hit me. And I think this is not the first time where we've had this Urkel slapstick comedy that's like it's just hard to process because it's just so like bizarre.
It was. I remember him saying something. I did not know what he said as he was entering the scene and he runs through the door. I
Right.
thought it was funny. It was hilarious, and I think everybody acted very well in it. But I don't know. Um, I feel like it got upstaged by when the teacher pulls him down, and his
Mm.
response there was far funnier than all of the physical comedy.
Oh yeah, 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 yeah. And my dessert is just the lines that Steve has had. I think this is like the second, third episode in the row where he just has classic funny line after classic funny line. Is so you're talking about when Miss Steuben pulls him down and he's like, "Ooh, Miss Steuben," like as if this is like some pervy student teacher thing that he's been waiting for his whole life.
Yes. Oh, I laughed so hard. I thought that was hilarious. Like everything leading up to it was funny, but that moment that stole that scene for me.
Yeah, I mean, it's a conflicting thing with me because it's funny the way Jaleel delivers it, but on another perspective, I'm like, why is this child actor being written as a perv by these adult writers? Like, like in 2024, it just wouldn't happen. Back then, it's like, oh, hey, look at this cute, adorable kid trying to be all suave and romantic and whatnot. But now it's just like, ew. Is this really appropriate for like a 13, 14-year-old little tyke to be saying?
It, I get that, and this whole episode it did not age well. This entire episode did not age well at all. When I was watching it, it was so hard to try to stay non-conflicted about, wow, yuck, this is giving me a little ick here. But at the same time, remembering as a kid when I watched this, I was like, oh, this is hilarious.
Yeah. And I think to make the icing on the cake even better, after Steve does his, ooh, Miss Steuben, he just goes right to the desk and just looks at Laura in awe. And I'm like, you playa. The nerve of this playa. Like going from, oh, okay, let's play with the teacher to, oh, back to my true love, Laura Lee Winslow.
Well, Steve is not weak and frail like he wants us to believe. He's the predator, and he's just like, I'm on this. And that's what we saw with that switch up with Laura. He didn't even care about Miss Stupid anymore.
Yes. Now, I had some thoughts about the reciting of the Pledge of Allegiance. Did you in this scene?
Okay, so I thought I was having an what's the word? Existential crisis
Okay.
when I was watching it. Because I was like, okay, so we get this scene where Steve, he runs into the flag and then gets
Yeah.
hoisted up in the air and then holds the flag. And then all the kids stand up and start saying the Pledge of Allegiance.
Right.
And the first thing I thought about was like, adolescent psychology going through that in college, where I was like, okay, this is kind of like saying the kids are conditioned to, on command, go into patriotic mode as soon as they see the flag hoisted. Or the other side of it, this is just a really funny joke at something that I've never myself enjoyed saying in school.
Yeah. The Pledge of Allegiance looks different to me now than it was when I was a kid because when you and I were doing it as kids, it was just like, oh, this is just a matter of life. This is just what we do at school, whatever. We're patriotic to our country. But I was questioning when like Miss Steuben, she was, shouting at the students to stop reciting the pledge when Steve was holding the flag because it's only recited when the teacher holds the flag. Has that ever happened with you when the pledge is recited? Because to my recollection, we always had the flag like stand by itself on a big pole when I was in school. Like we never had a teacher hold the flag.
In military school, yes, the
Oh, okay.
teacher would hold up the flag. I don't think we ever said the Pledge of Allegiance in public school.
Hmm. Well, I went to a private Christian school for the first 5 years, my first 5 grades. And I think once I got into public school, I didn't really do that anymore, but private school, that was certainly a thing. And am I the only one that sort of sees it now as a culty Nazi kind of thing? It just comes off that way. You know what I mean? It's like it's already enough that we were either born into this country or we came in as immigrants and we signed our papers or whatever. The idea that no, you have to stand in front of the flag, put your hand over your heart, and say your duty to this country and to God, which some people may not even believe in. Um, I don't know. It just came off like if we didn't do this stupid allegiance thing, that we would come off as like untrustworthy aliens, and we would be deported immediately.
Yeah, it's so culty. Now, I don't know if you had to do it, but in military school, when we said the Pledge of Allegiance, after that, we had to sing My Country 'Tis of Thee
Oh God,
every
no.
day, all the time, every day, every morning. We have to do it. And I felt like I was like being indoctrinated into a cult for a while where I was like, this is so weird. And
Yeah.
looking at it today, I'm like, yeah, this is still really, really freaking weird.
Yeah, yeah. Definitely not gonna do it nowadays. America is too questionable nowadays.
It
Um,
is. I actually get fearful when I see the American flag now.
yeah. Here in Vermont, we have plenty of patriotic people who put their flag outside their house. They probably lean on the conservative side. And look, I mean, believe what you want to believe. But I think the political events of the last decade or so have led me to believe that if you have an American flag hoisted outside your house, it doesn't mean the same like it did like 20 or so years ago. Now it just means, ooh, I'm going to keep my distance from you as a person of color.
Yes, I am like, oh, okay. I just had an experience. We'll talk about it later, but this weekend driving through Pennsylvania, and that was intense.
Oh, I cannot wait to hear that. As for the classroom in this first scene, did it seem a tad elementary or middle schoolish to you? I think the point I'm trying to make is it just seemed a little younger than the kids actually were. Like just the vibe of it, I was getting like, oh, this seems magic school bus, elementary schoolish, rather than like these are middle school kids. They look like they're bordering on high school. I don't know if you had a thought about the aesthetic.
The classroom layout itself is very weird. I actually focus on it later in a scene that we're going to get to because
Hmm.
the classroom, from how you're describing the site that we see initially in this first scene, it does look a little younger than you would expect these kids to be in.
Right.
Like the desk size, the stuff that's on the walls, the things that she's talking about, it looks a lot younger than what they are. And then there's an opposite side to the classroom where it's very adult. So I
Hmm.
was like, this is very different. Or I would say it's very adult related issues
Mm.
compared to what the kids would have.
So one side of the classroom is Cartoon Network, the other side is Adult Swim.
Exactly.
Ah, boy. Oh, so Steve, of course, he's just so self-centered in this scene. I mean, he's, like I think Miss Steuben said like two words before he, interrupted or just made a big show out of like, opening up his desk and, taking out the notepad, taking out the framed picture of Laura. Um, which I guess Miss Steuben allows. She has no problem with this kid having this unhealthy obsession towards a classmate. Okay.
Miss Steuben is a very interesting character. She does know that there's a stalker in the classroom, but she allows all these accommodations for him. Like when he sits down, he says, "Excuse me." First, I don't think he needed to say "excuse me." I thought it would have been funnier if he didn't say a line, but then
Right.
extended the desk and pulled out all these things as she's trying to talk.
Right,
I would have
right.
loved that more. But this classroom is interesting, and Miss Steuben makes it funnier because she loses it, but she tries not to lose it.
Yeah, she's tired. She's certainly underpaid. She's about to lose her shit. Um, she's like about to teach some lesson, and Steve interrupts her with a line that I'm like so blown away by because Jaleel just tried to say it all in one breath, and you could hear him like kind of losing his breath along the way. The line where it's like, "Oh, current geopolitical constructs are much more complex than your simplistic concentric circle model." You see, I can't even say it without like tripping up or losing my breath. But Jaleel is giving a lot to work with by the writers. They're making him remember some wordy stuff.
Some of it I always wonder watching now. I'm like, is he improvising this as well? Because it just seems so natural for him.
Yeah, it does. And it just further speaks to why he was chosen to be the rising star of this show. Did you catch when Miss Steuben snaps at Steve, interrupting her, I think for like the umpteenth time, and the class and Steve look at Miss Steuben like she's crazy. And I thought, you know what, y'all have some nerve, okay? Like, like, come on, it's Urkel. Like that will make anybody want to lose it. And I think they're justified to lose it just once, maybe pull it back afterwards. But yeah, if you have to put up with someone like Urkel, your patience is going to be tested. This woman needs a vacation, and teachers, they don't get the treatment that they deserve. So she's trying. She's trying.
I feel like when she snapped, she held it together so well for a teacher.
Right.
That was like a nice controlled, hey, I'm tired of you, kid, but I can't hit you. And I can relate to it because I used to teach adults, and adults do the same thing in classrooms that they used to do as kids. So I get her frustration of like, damn, kid, just let me talk.
Wow. Your thoughts on Miss Steuben assigning kids to become married to each other, to figure out what life is like as a married couple. What are your thoughts on that? Did you have to go through that yourself when you were in class?
So we never did married. First, my thoughts on this assignment is that I was like, oh, okay, this could be really cool and interesting because we want to teach kids about being adults. But I'm like, what if they didn't want to be married? Why didn't they get that option of, oh, okay, well, this is supposed to be about budgeting, planning for your life, career development, becoming an adult. So if that's what the guidance to this exercise was, and she starts it off by saying, like, hey, this is the basis of society and this is how we build. Well, society includes everybody. So maybe I don't want to be married, but I still need to learn how to budget and become an adult like everybody else. So I felt it was
Exactly.
kind of weird to like push this assignment onto them.
You and I thought the exact same thing. Back then, in the 90s, I guess we were operating under a more traditional view that, oh, yeah, everybody, when they grow up, they're going to get married and they need to know how to budget, work with their partner, things like that. And like you, I was like, well, career development, budgeting, blah, blah, blah. I mean, you could still learn that as a single independent adult. Like you don't need to be married to learn all that. So, um, and especially when we're pretending to do marriage in a classroom setting like that. I mean, they're middle schoolers. So, people are going to choose favorites. They're going to want to pick a crush. They're going to want to pick a close friend of theirs. So inevitably, you're going to always have that lone person or two that's like, oh, nobody likes me. Nobody wants to partner with me. So there's just so many things that can go wrong with the whole marriage pretending thing in school.
Yeah, it's I don't know why I wrote this in my notes. I'm just saying it. The marriage agenda. I
Uh,
like it's the weirdest thing. I thought like I've seen in school, I don't know if you've seen it, where like you and a partner get assigned to take care of an egg for a week or something,
yeah.
where it's like, oh, you have to figure out how to coordinate taking care of this and building teamwork and like parenting. But this, just the marriage side of it, I just thought it was weird and it wasn't something I experienced. So I was wondering if you had that like as a class in school.
I don't remember having a marriage thing, so to speak. I think by the time the 2000s came around, we weren't really doing much of that. It was more tied to like, oh, science experiments. Make this cake that is supposed to resemble a uterus or dissect a frog. I'm just creating an example. I mean, it was not really a uterus. I'm sure it was like, oh, like an innocent part of the human body. No, no, making kids were not making uterus cakes for God's sake. That's gonna be traumatic going on later in life because then I don't know, someone who has a woman as a spouse who is about to produce a baby will look at a uterus and be like, "Oh, okay, where's the fork? Where's the frosting?" We don't want that. We don't want that.
I'm not gonna get uterus cake out of my head forever.
Ew, that's disgusting. Um, and I mean, my last moment, I'm curious as to what you thought when, Steve Miss Steuben was like, "Oh, everybody, write down your three choices for who you would like to have as a married partner." And Steve automatically he does the Carl Winslow, like he gets like really worked up. Even before Miss Steuben said anything, I was like, "Oh, he's just gonna write Laura three times."
I knew it. As soon as before she said it, I knew it too. His laugh seemed so maniacal in this scene, but it made me laugh even harder.
Yeah, I mean that's because Urkel is maniacal in every single way possible. Yeah, no, Miss Steuben says, Steve, you cannot put the same name three times. She said exactly what we predicted. And I mean, that's it for me for scene two. What else did you think about this scene?
That was it for me. It was a nice, clean wrap up. And then we got on to scene three with through the date, well, the date aftermath, we should say, because we start with Harriet in the scene and she's got a big bandage on her head.
So, can I tell you that I Googled this? I
Hmm.
thought to myself, a hockey puck has to be heavy as fuck. There's no way Harriet is surviving that. And um not Google, Bing, because of my computer. They said in short, yes, bone fractures are a genuine concern due to the weight, speed, trajectory of a hockey puck, as well as the physical nature of the game. So Harriet should have died during that
Oh, yeah.
moment.
Harriet should have had a dent in the size of her head, about the size of your palm. Hockey pucks are massive, hard, and they will kill you.
Yes, God, I don't want to make a dick joke. Let's move on. I'm trying to be a good boy here. But no, I mean, we're really getting stressed as to how terrible of a husband Carl is because, like, Jesus Christ, your wife almost died from getting hit by a hockey puck. She's got this bandage in the middle of her head. She looks awful, and the wife is suggesting, like, oh, hey, like, we have a date at Chez Josephine, which is what we bring back. I wonder if Alan is still the owner of that restaurant. What do you think?
I think Alan's probably working in there now. He's probably gotten so depressed from Rachel ghosting him that he was like, I'm just going to go work at the restaurant and be passionate with cooking food.
Carl and Harriet are just coming in like, oh God, let's try to avoid Alan. Let's try to avoid him. We don't want his sob story. We don't want him crying. We don't want him eating ice cream in front of us, talking about how Rachel ghosted him. Um, yeah, no, Carl doesn't commit to the date. He doesn't commit to the date. I mean, uh, his reasoning. What did you think about his reasoning? I thought it was very strange because of the cop he was talking about. I think the reasoning was like, oh, there's a cop covering traffic control, but he got switched to hooker patrol, and now he's getting married this weekend. What were your thoughts about that reason?
I, so the explanation led me to believe that Carl is secretly abusing his power with prostitutes. That is that is what immediately went in my head. I was like, wait, so he got switched to hooker patrol? So you're going to his bachelor party because all of the hookers are going to be there?
Oh my God. I love that so much. Carl is too good to do that, but that would be funny if he did abuse his power with prostitutes. No, first and foremost, I thought like the word hooker is being used on Family Matters. It just seemed very adult. I mean, there's been a lot of adult things said and done so far on this family sitcom, but I just never thought I would hear the word hooker. I can only imagine what the kids of 1990 were thinking, like, oh, does that mean a fish hook? Like, I don't
I
know.
wouldn't know what hooker was back then. And I would probably be like, hey, mom, what does hooker mean? And then she's like, don't ever say that. But now I know what hooker is and I get it.
Yeah, it's when the devil sends people to do his horny bidding for him.
Yes, you give professional handshakes on the side of the road.
But correct me if I have this explanation wrong. So I'm thinking about this hooker patrol coverage. Are we implying that the cop Carl is talking about is marrying a hooker that he patrolled?
I mean, that could be, well, wow. Yeah, maybe the cop who was patrolling the hookers got married to one of the hookers or is getting married to one of the hookers, so all the hookers are throwing them a bachelor party.
Yeah. And I mean, where to start? Because I feel like there's all kinds of illegal in a cop marrying a hooker that he was patrolling. Like the same hookers that I think are, I mean, the profession itself, I think, was considered illegal by those cops back then, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's still illegal now, which it shouldn't be. Sex work is real work. Fight for sex workers. But
Yeah.
it like it's so weird. Like it was a weird, weird scene. As a spouse, I think I would have been more upset at the explanation than the fact that our date got canceled. Because I would be concerned that my husband is mixed in with the bad crowd.
Yeah, understandably. You want to keep your husband in check.
And then Carl, did you catch this? He doesn't even acknowledge Harriet's disappointment. Like he's the most unobservant husband in the world.
Oh yeah, yeah, like I said, it's a sitcom trope. It's like the husband is just it's over his head how much his wife wants to spend time with him. He's just like, whatever. I want to go to a hockey game. I want to, work extra hours this weekend. He doesn't give a crap. And we're gonna see that for a while. I am curious if you had some fashion notes about Rachel and Mama Winslow in this scene.
Mama Winslow, I don't know who they let dress her. I don't know who. They put her in that big shirt, formless. Whoever was in Roadrope that day did not like her.
That extra large button down National Lampoon's Vacation shirt. It was like, what the heck? What? What did some white production staff member just say, "Hey, Mama Winslow, just put something on." Like they had no ideas for Estelle that day and they just put her in that. Like not her at all. Not her at all.
Mm-mm, mm-mm. Like if she was gonna be dressed like that, they should have been giving her like something to do. Like that's like what you wear when you're cleaning the house and you don't mind getting the clothes dirty.
Right, right. Now, how about what Rachel was wearing? So, did you like it?
I actually bought all the pieces for it.
Okay.
That will be once I lose a little bit more in my stomach, something I'm actually going to wear because I thought it was super freaking cute.
So, what is that shoulderless top called? What is that?
But oh,
Is that just called like a sleeveless? Well, not. I mean, it had sleeves on it. It just it had no shoulder
I
coverage to it.
I know there's a name for it. I don't know what it's called, but when I like searched it, I just did what did I look? A shoulderless dress is what I looked for. And then I
Mm,
found a top that looked for it, but I don't know if that's the actual name. The only other thing that I could think of is it's a cowl neck, I think is what it's called. And
right.
then you can kind of like stretch it over your shoulders, maybe.
Okay. Okay. Well, it's some kind of shoulderless top, and she had ripped up jean shorts. I think she had Spanx underneath the jean shorts. I
Hmm.
didn't know what to make of it. I thought that she looked like a high schooler who was like about to sneak out on the town with her friends and just go out to the clubs or whatever. Like it just seemed like a little bit younger. But I could be wrong. I could be wrong. I mean, there could be a lot of women in their mid 30s who dress like that, and that's totally fine if they do.
It's like a athleisure kind of like, is she going to go work out or is she going to go to get a drink? Like
Right.
it's it was like a fun casual look, but I did like it. I liked it a lot.
Yeah, yeah. What did you think about like the moment where Rachel and Mama Winslow I think this was, Carl being his oblivious self toward Harriet. Harriet is looking sad. Carl is leaving the scene, and Rachel and Mama Winslow are just like, what? Like, what's going on? Like, what? Why didn't you say anything? Like, why aren't you angry? Like, did you find them to be a little antagonistic towards Harriet, or did you think it was warranted that, they kind of knocked some sense into Harriet to say something to Carl about their lack of romantic life?
This is actually my entree.
Oh,
This
okay.
whole little portion of the scene. Um, I thought it was the best emotional moment that I've experienced throughout our entire rewatch.
Hmm.
Like, this was a very deep moment in the scene where I relate to Rachel and Mama Winslow because if I am around my friends and their man does something like that, I'm going to call it out. I'm like, what the fuck is going on? Like, he just didn't acknowledge this at all. And of course, they're like, oh, it's okay. But I'm like, no, like, I would be upset. But then when we get Harry, it's like, I'm not upset, I'm scared.
Yeah.
That's such a vulnerable moment where, as friends, they would crowd around you the way Mama Winslow and Rachel essentially did, even though they were like, hey, Carl's an idiot right now. But they're like, oh, this is deeper than just you being upset about him not acknowledging you.
Right, right. I do think that Rachel and Mama Winslow could have been a little softer on their approach to Harriet. If I was Rachel and Mama Winslow, I'd be like, "Oh, hey, is everything okay? Like, you look sad." And I wouldn't be like, "Girl, what's going on?" Because like Mama Winslow was like, "Hey, honey." Carl's my son. I love him, but I'll knock him to next week if you won't. Like she was like really ready to just punch her not favorite son Carl in the face. And then you were talking about how Harriette was scared that Carl wasn't like doing the romantic gestures that he doesn't do anymore, like leaving notes around the house, sending her flowers all the time. And I mean, I kind of feel two ways about that. I'm curious about your thoughts. Like, yeah, Carl definitely needs to be attentive to his wife's desires and vice versa. That's how a marriage works. But those specific actions that he used to do, those specific things like, leaving notes around the house, yada, yada, yada. I mean, it does kind of remind me of a honeymoon phase of a relationship. And I wonder if Carl can figure out how to be attentive and there for his wife while not feeling like, oh, yeah, you have to be like you were within your first few dates. Like take it from a guy who, I've been married to my wife for almost a year and we've been together overall for a little over 4 years. Like the way we were in the beginning with the constant gift giving and things like that, we're not like that now. It's like a nice balance of like, we're there for each other, but we're in a more comfortable, quiet space where if it's just a regular day where not much is happening, we're good. You like we're gonna survive this. So I don't know. What were your thoughts about Harriet being scared about Carl not being the big romantic gesture person anymore?
So my thoughts on it are two things. Me as a relationship person, I only exist through the honeymoon phase and then the relationship's over.
Okay.
Um, so there is, I don't have like a personal reference point for how it is afterwards, but I don't expect the same way I don't want people to expect for me that I'm going to be the exact same person you met the very first day we met. And maybe that honeymoon phase of constant flowers, text messages, all this like cute, funny stuff. But if I am in a relationship with someone, I do hope. And I'm saying hope because I can't expect somebody to do something if I don't say it myself. And this is kind of what I feel about Harriet in this situation. We've got two things happening. One, Carl is just completely oblivious to you, but your actions so far are leading us to believe that you're only dropping hints.
Mhm.
And if you want something, closed mouths don't get fed. You have to say it.
Oh yeah.
Like at that point, if I'm feeling scared in my relationship, I'm just going to come to you and be like, hey, so I noticed these things aren't happening anymore. Can we just talk about it? I want you to know how I feel. I want you to know where I'm at. And I'm going to take accountability for me just so you know what I feel like I'm experiencing.
Yeah, you bring up a good point because with Carl being oblivious, Harriet doesn't have to wait for him to get the point. She could, if she is concerned, you're right, say something, not kind of silently gossip to her sister and her mother-in-law. She could be forthright with Carl about like, hey, like let's spend some time together. I mean, there were, like you said, little hints here and there showing her displeasure at Carl not getting it when she didn't want to go to the hockey game or when she got hit by the hockey puck and he still turned her down for Shea Josephine. But I don't know. Maybe just a little bit more of a push, maybe a little bit more of a direct conversation would have made all the difference in the world. So yeah,
Yeah,
interesting conversation there.
it would. I mean, unfortunately, Harriet, for men sometimes, and not all men, but for certain men, you've got to do quantum physics for them to get to that understanding of why you're upset. And
Yep.
Carl is that man.
Oh yeah, yeah. And look, I mean, I'm that stupid, oblivious straight man at times as well. My wife will attest to that. So totally get Carl. Anything else for scene three?
No, nothing else for scene three because scene four I actually really enjoy. I think it's a fun one. So are you ready to go on? How do you feel?
Yeah, this is Judgment Day. This is where we find out who's getting paired up with who for this fake school marriage.
Yes. So we get to the classroom. We start with Maxine meeting Laura because all the kids are crowded around a board where the names are posted with who's going to be paired with who. And this is where I see the adult side of the classroom. So I have to know, did you pick up on the news articles and the things that were on the wall where the names are posted?
No, not at all. What did they say?
So in the middle to the right, I'm sorry, to the left side of the posting of the names, there is a news article and it's big yellow, red in purple, and it says it's the business of fighting AIDS. And then there's USA Today article clippings, and then there's a picture of a scientist looking through a microscope at something. Like you can't see it detailed, but there's more about fighting AIDS and the AIDS crisis on the background of the classroom.
So, are you telling me the Family Matters production team were low key progressive in their opinion of making sure AIDS is out there? That is so brilliant because obviously in a family sitcom, the ABC Disney executives are going to be like, "Oh, like if it was very obvious that they were trying to promote this heavy subject, the executives would come down and say like this is not happening." But to have it there, but not so much there where it will cause trouble. Like that's an interesting statement. I like that.
Yeah, I liked it too. When I saw it, I was like, no way. So I rewound it, paused it, and I was like, okay, this is here. And then I replayed it. They stay on that actual open space. And if you're paying attention, you can clearly see the business of fighting AIDS. Like you don't have to squint or anything. It's very visible and clear. And some of the kids are standing directly under it, kind of like their heads are at the top of where it is. So I couldn't help but look at it. I was like, this makes me feel like one, what subject is this teacher teaching? Because I thought this was social studies, but is this a health class? Like, what class are they in?
I mean, AIDS and the crisis that ended up from it, I mean, you could kind of define it as a social issue. I mean, because you you get into the stigma of it, which is like a lot of people thought that like, oh, it was only like homosexual men that were carrying it. So then you get into the social issue of equality, openness, hearing people out, knowing that everybody's not the same, everybody works differently with their bodies. So yeah, I don't know. I wonder if that's Pamela and Sally making that decision. I wonder if that was Rich making that decision to put that newspaper article there. But good for them, because I'm sure even though AIDS was mostly associated with like the 80s, I'm sure in 1990 it was still a big thing.
Oh, yeah, it was still a very big crisis and epidemic. And the thing that got me was that they had that in there. And at that time, and still currently, African American people are affected 10 times more than anybody else than HIV and AIDS.
Right.
So it was very interesting. I was like, oh, we get this moment in this Black sitcom where we have an actual issue that's very big that isn't spoken about, but the camera is left there for a long enough time that you can see the message.
Yeah, yeah, and what an important message it is. Laura's shirt that she wore in this scene, it's like a shirt that I've seen in like every 90s show. It's like that buttoned up, like short sleeve, multi-shaped and patterned shirt. Like, how many times have you seen that shirt that she wore?
Oh, at least 50. And I think I actually have two of them in my closet right now.
What? Do you still wear them?
Yeah. Yeah, oh, I love that little short sleeve button up thing. Like I still wear them.
Yeah, yeah. And Maxine, I think, speaks for the first time in this scene. In the last scene, she did not.
In the last scene, she didn't. In this scene, Laura, did you pick on it that she kind of whispers Maxine's name? She doesn't actually say it out loud.
No,
And
I
then
didn't pick up on
Maxine
that.
starts talking.
Huh. Interesting. I wonder if that was a choice by the writers to be like, oh, we don't know what this character is, so let's just whisper her and maybe we'll figure it out by that whisper.
That's what I think it was. Because it's so weird because she kind of walks in and she's like, and it kind of looked like it was a mistake, like she wasn't supposed to say her name. And then Maxine runs over to her, and I'm like, okay, I'm like, this is a little different than I thought it was gonna be.
Right. Oh my God, that's so funny. And I think this is when like Maxine, she's like very excited because she's paired up with her big crush Matt or Mark Healy, Mark Healy.
Mark Healy.
Yeah. And yeah, no, this is the scene where Laura faints when of course she finds out that the lovely Steve Urkel is her marriage partner. And one, how were you like me and thought that it was very heavily choreographed, the fainting? Like it was like, students back away. Here comes a big moment where Laura's gonna pass out. Seems very
Okay,
rehearsed.
you picked it up perfectly the same way I did because you see Laura step to her left and then everybody backs up and then she falls back. So I'm like, she was waiting for the cue and they were like, we were going to make sure you're safe.
Yeah. And you know what? Look, it's stage combat to make sure that you are safe as possible. So that's all good. Safety is the key there. My second point about that moment is how, even though again, Miss Steuben knows that Steve Urkel has an unhealthy obsession towards Laura, she's just like, man, whatever. Like, I don't want him bothering me, so I'll put him with Laura and he'll leave me alone, not caring about Laura's well-being.
Yes, this is a reoccurring theme in this episode
Yeah.
that people do not care about what is happening to Laura.
Yep.
Like I saw this and I was like, wait, Laura does not want to be around this boy. You know it's an unhealthy obsession, but you're just like, fuck it, I'm just gonna put them together. Like, what?
It is crazy. Anything else you got for this scene?
No, this was actually a really nice, succinct scene, and
Hmm.
I nothing. How about you?
No, that's it for me. I'm good. I'm good for the next one.
Okay, so now this scene I want to check with you to make sure that I didn't miss anything. So this is where it kind of like went wonky on the website I was watching, then I went to Hulu. But are they at dinner when you get to scene five?
Correct. Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
So we
And
got dinner, family's all there, and Laura's walking in.
yeah, Laura walks in late at night. First of all, did Judy look older to you in this episode? She looked slightly older than just 2 episodes ago. Um,
Yes.
Maybe they taped those 2 episodes in advance, those first 2 episodes, and then are we on the third episode of season two?
Technically, we're on the second episode, but because it was 2 episodes split, I had to keep telling myself this because it was so hard. I was like, what episode number is this? So technically, it's the second if we're going by the airing, but it's the
Yeah,
third for the rewatch.
for the streaming, correct, correct. So we'll just say season two, episode three for current day purposes. But Judy definitely looked older, and Little Richie had a moment. I think this was when she told or he told his mom Rachel that like, oh, I'm so glad that Uncle Carl's back because Aunt Harriet said he was in the doghouse.
That was perfect. Little Richie is like the little messy grenade that they use in every scene to like nail in a point for a character. And I've noticed that as we go through the season.
Yeah, he's definitely giving very cutesy child actor vibes. It's very intentional. My concern is that, I mean, never mind what place Urkel takes for the entire show, for at least the cutesy child actor thing. I mean, that was Judy's thing for a hot minute. So now that little Richie's in that, it's like, oh God, that's because Judy looking older now, it's not going to work as much for her to have those cutesy child actor moments.
Yeah, already in season two, I'm thinking about an interview that I saw Jamie do about how Judy got to the stage of she's a cute child actress, but then she's going to quickly grow up and become not cute anymore, but awkward teen. And we already have awkward teens. So looking at this, I was like, wow, this kind of did get that moment where we have an unbalanced cast situation.
Yeah, yeah. It's very sad because there's so much potential to Judy, but there's only so many characters you can give shine to in the world of Urkel. So it's just going to be a gradual depression, just seeing how they use her character. Oh boy. So okay, so we've established that Laura is coming home late, and Harriet is like, "Uh, hello, we called Rachel's place 2 hours ago. Where have you been?" First thought I had was, it looks like Leroy passed the baton to Rachel in terms of letting underage workers stay at the business by themselves late at night,
Yes.
closing up.
Yeah. I had to think, I was like, what adults work there? Because it's only the kids and Rachel.
Yeah.
So Laura's just there by herself.
Yeah. I mean, look, she can be trustworthy compared to Urkel, especially. I mean, let's see. Laura Winslow, the hardworking innocent person, or Steve the arson. You take your pick.
I mean, the problem I have is Laura was an accomplice to the arson because she was there. So I would be a little nervous, like, do I really want to leave her alone on the second day, technically, of having Rachel's? No.
How was she? Wait. How was she an accomplice? Like, was she trying to cover up the fire with Steve? Like, was she trying to make it seem like nothing was a big deal?
I give her accomplice because she was there. She was there and you were accompanying the crime that occurred. the arson that we watched happen, Laura was right there. So I would feel nervous leaving a kid in charge of a restaurant knowing she was just at one that burnt down.
All right, all right. So she didn't do enough to stop Steve from causing that fire. I get what you mean. Eddie, who doesn't seem to be much of a presence in this episode other than the cold open, I was drawn to his shirt in this scene. I thought he had a very crisp, bright yellow button-down shirt. It just stood out to me.
I did not notice that. Would that be something you'd wear?
No, maybe back in the day. Maybe back
Okay.
in the day, but yellow is a little bit too loud for me.
Oh, okay. I can see it. I can see it. I have to watch it again. Is it like a button down like when people go to the clubs in the 90s?
Maybe it was a the yellow on the button down was certainly bright. There were stripes on it, liney
Okay.
stripes. It just it was a very bright yellow. And Eddie, this is not the last that we're going to see him pull off some fashion statements. Um, what did you think about the family humming the Here Comes the Bride song to Laura?
That was actually going to be my question to you because I think this is a continuity error. How did they know this was happening?
Oh, like how did they already know that Steve and Laura were going to be married?
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, I mean, word spreads around. I don't know. I guess what happens at the middle school in Chicago spreads around, and the family knows about it. It's in the local newspaper. Uh, it could have been passed down to Judy. Could have been passed down to Rachel. Who knows? Eddie, maybe Eddie, even though he's in high school, knew about it. I don't know. I wasn't thinking about that. That's a good point. I was just thinking about how insanely cruel it was that this family was teasing Laura for being a victim of Steve Urkel's non-consensual obsession. Again,
Oh, this is the darkest scene for me. Well, second to darkest scene. Because, like you said, the family's antagonizing Laura, essentially bullying her. And then Steve enters the scene to make it worse by asking Carl for Laura's hand in marriage.
yeah,
And
when he comes in and he's like, "Oh, my little nuptial nymph," and I had to remember what the word nymph was, which is a mythological spirit of nature, imagined as a beautiful maiden inhabiting rivers, woods, or other locations. I think you're into like that Greek stuff, aren't you?
I like it. So I knew what a nymph was, but to call her a nymph, I just laughed. I thought it was hilarious.
Yeah. Would have been weird if it was like my nuptial nymphomaniac.
Now that I would be concerned. I'd be like, Carl, if you don't kick this kid out your house.
Oh boy, I love it. Oh, so fuck Eddie for his mean, lame comment to Laura. He was like, "Oh, where's your sense of humor, Miss Urkel?" When Laura was not laughing at all at the family's teasing. And even though Laura has been mean to Eddie many times, I always applaud how she can give a witty comeback. And her coming back with, "Eddie, is that your face or did your neck throw up?" I was like, "Oh damn. I wish I had known that when I was a kid." That I mean, as an adult, it's probably like mad, but as a kid, like I would think of myself as the smartest person in the room if I came up with that one.
That was a good one. That was a very good one. I saw that in a Disney movie, and I know kids would say it in school with me, and
Nice.
I thought it was a very good delivery. But then Judy comes in and steals the scene, like the star she is. And she says, "No fighting at the table," and I screamed.
Yeah, so she's clearly second in line for cutesy child actor. But nonetheless, yes, maybe the only line that she had in the show.
It
Hey
is.
children, no fighting at the table. Yes, it was still like, "Oh, Judy, look at you."
Judy took control of that scene, and those. You're right. That is the only set of lines we get from her in the entire show.
I don't think she says anything other than that line. I'm willing to bet you that that is the only thing she says throughout the entire episode.
I think so. Like I am racking my brain, and I don't remember her saying a single other thing.
You got
Wow.
you got Urkel, you got the cutesy child actor Little Richie, Eddie and Laura. Apparently, they're the more favorite of the Winslow children. They're getting their spotlight. Where's Judy going to be? Like, we think that it's going to kind of like slowly happen throughout but I think it's already happening, only 2 seasons in.
It seems like it. We're only at this episode, and already Judy seems pushed in the background.
It sucks. It sucks. Um, what I did find funny in this scene is how Steve is trying to be professional about like asking Carl for Laura's hand in marriage, even though, everything of what he's doing is non-consensual. So what does it really matter? Part of my dessert of classic funny Urkel lines. The line where he was like, "Oh, you know that in Kenya, the name Urkel means a benign cyst on the leg of a wildebeest?"
That was a very good line.
Probably my favorite. Probably my favorite line. That's the most desserty of my dessert lines.
Okay, wow. Yeah, it was a good line. It was a delicious line, not the imagery.
No, 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 no. I don't. I would prefer not to see a benign cyst on the leg of a wildebeest. That not only is that very wordy and descriptive, but yeah, that might be more disgusting than dog vomit and then licking the vomit back up.
Poor dogs.
Yeah. Anything else you got for this scene?
No, this scene, that is it for me. Anything else you have?
No, I'm ready for the next one.
Okay, the next scene, I feel that this started off very weird, because we just jumped to, I think, essentially a week later,
2 weeks later.
2 weeks later, and we got Lori in the living room full of gifts. It's just crazy gifts that
Yeah.
Steve is just bought her, and flowers everywhere.
Yep. And the dinner that he made her, how mushy and disgusting did that baked potato looked? I was looking at that baked potato and I was like, okay, get that away from my face.
That did not look good at all. And according to Steve, he already made Laura 7 other meals, including sushi, which would have been an eighth.
Yeah, you're literally killing her. You are literally killing her. I think a family member, somebody told me a story about how someone like binge ate to death. Like their stomach couldn't take any more. The stomach lining just ripped open and then they just died. That's what I was thinking of when Steve told me that he fed Laura 8 times. It was like, oh, not only do you love her, but you want to kill her. You are a little black nerdy version of Ted Bundy, I think.
Yes, it's the literal love bomb. You're gifting her to death and then feeding her to death. We got feederism going on here. It is a crazy dynamic.
Yeah. And was there orange high C in that wine glass? That's the first thing that I thought.
That's what it looked like. And if it was, I would have drank it. That looked delicious.
Yeah, I used to be all about the high C back in the day. I've not had high C in a minute. My wife will have high C like to this day, but for me, high C is one of those drinks where it's like, man, it's not gonna taste as good as it did when I was a kid.
When is the last time you've had high C?
Oh God, I can't tell you. Probably like 20, 25-ish years ago, late 90s, early 2000s.
Okay. I am like Tony. I love high C, orange high C specifically. It is the only thing I will go to McDonald's and get because it's so good.
They still sell orange high C at McDonald's.
It's the only restaurant, well, at least the only fast food restaurant that sells the orange high C.
Yeah,
And you can't buy it in the store. If you get the one in the store that's the same name, it doesn't taste the same.
right,
From
right, right.
McDonald's, it tastes phenomenal. I feel like they put crack in it or something. It's so good. But
Oh
if you do
God.
try high C, go to McDonald's, get that.
Okay. I mean, look, McDonald's
No.
itself is already crack, so it kind of just fits in anyway.
Okay.
I mean, it really is. I mean, what do you think about it? It is, yeah. Like
Yeah.
you thirst for it when you're really hungry for it, and then you get a couple bites in, and then you realize, I feel so terrible.
You feel dirty, you feel shameful, you feel like you've done something against the Lord, and you have to repent after you eat McDonald's. I don't even like picking it up for orders, to be honest.
Yeah. I mean, by the way,
Like,
if I thought about all the things I've done wrong by the Lord, we'd be here for days. So that's the least of my problems.
so
I mean, heck, you, Andrew, apparently, according to some Christians, by just existing as yourself, you're doing wrong by the Lord. So, I can't imagine what you have to go through.
oh my God, I wake up and breathe and take a deep breath, and someone's like, "You're gay, you're going to hell." Like, oh, well, can I just wake up in the morning?
Exactly. I just have my coffee, please. Oh my God.
I mean, the fun thing, at least from how it feels when people do that, because my family was deep in the church and they believe that too. I woke up every day and I was like, I don't have to care because I'm already going. So
There you
what am
go.
I supposed to do?
There you go. Live your life to the fullest. That's all you can do at that point.
Now,
I
did you notice? Oh,
Yeah.
go ahead.
No, 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 go ahead.
Did you notice in the scene the flowers that are used are the same flowers from the very first episode? You remember when Harriet had all the flowers around the house and stuff for Mom Winslow?
So these are clearly some fake flowers because
I
they wouldn't have survived that long.
I noticed and I was like, I've got to go back because there's a set of pink roses that are in the back right hand corner of the stage. They are the exact same flowers.
So we have the ugly Pepto-Bismol couch and we have the flowers. Those are just the mainstays that we are going to get throughout the whole show.
The Winslows know how to recycle. Now, was there anything in this scene that got you?
Well, Steve's line, deep in the back of your fridge, I found a fascinating molt specimen thriving on an ancient cheese wheel. He says that to Laura. And it made me question Harriet because it doesn't seem like her character to neglect cleaning out the fridge for like that long. It seemed like something that Rachel would do if she lived on her own.
I wouldn't imagine Harriet one to have a cheese wheel. So that kind of threw me. But then when he's like, yeah, there's this interesting mold, I'm like, what's going on in the Winslow household?
Yeah, a lot of not cleaning. We need
Well,
to
it
get.
could be a side effect of Carl ignoring Harriet too.
Oh, you think that Harriet is so mad at Carl ignoring her that as sort of like a passive aggressive thing, she's not cleaning the fridge because Carl's a foodie.
I didn't put it together that way. I
Yeah.
was thinking because Harriet was just stressed out, she's like, forget cleaning, I'm not doing this. But I can see this as a little like passive aggressive attack
Carl, you love your food. Well, how about if how about now when it's 100 years old and it's cheese?
with moles. Ugh.
Ugh. Yeah. Oh, by the way, I don't know how you felt when Steve announces to Laura that like this is their last night as husband and wife, and he proceeds to play Frank Sinatra's Strangers in the Night via the cassette player. I laughed out loud, and it was like a nostalgic laugh out loud because I definitely remember this scene as one of those iconic scenes in Family Matters that you just never forget. I mean, it's almost up there with Urkel's debut back in episode 12 of last season. And actually, I think they did a clip show later in the series, flashing back to like the history of Steve and Laura, and they probably included this scene.
I think so. I think it was the episode when Laura was deciding if she wanted Stefan or Steve, and she had like a memory montage, and they played the scene.
That makes sense. That makes sense. Yeah, I could totally see that. And then Steve creepily tries to seduce Laura with a kiss, and Laura disgustingly asks if he ate that moldy cheese. And I found it funny that she said that because I was looking at the tie dye of her shirt, like the yellow tie dyeing of her shirt, and I was like,
Mhm.
looks like some of that moldy cheese got on your shirt. That would have been a great comeback for Laura. Yeah. You think
What of that shirt? What did you think of it? Because it looked like it was a very old tie dye.
Oh, that's exactly what I just said. It's a moldy cheese tie-dye looking shirt. It is a choice, you know. Laura's fashion has been good so far this season, but the tie-dye shirt brings me back to season one Laura, where the choices were questionable.
Very, very. I did like one thing in the scene that we got from Steve,
Yeah.
his walk. His walk is being defined. And it was like this weird, shaky Parkinson's-esque, but old man
So,
Humpty Dumpty walk.
so you're talking about his like swagalicious walk when he's trying to like serenade Laura, or like his regular nerdy walk that he establishes later on?
His swagalicious walk. That
Yeah.
is the most interesting thing I've seen him do.
Yeah, I mean, like just last episode, he was doing a lot of that with the, thinking that Rachel loved him. So, yeah, we're getting two episodes in a row where Urkel is just this romantic bravadocio. And another one of my dessert lines, I think this was at the moment where like Steve was stretched out on Laura's lap, like, "Oh, take me away, my sweet, do what you want with me." And Laura pushes him off to the floor. And Steve suddenly was a twitchy cocaine addict, and he was like, "Oh, I felt the earth move." Like, remember that? Like, he just, "Oh, I felt the earth move." He took a hit
He
before he said that line.
he was ecstatic. it was such a weird change in his behavior, but this is when I was like, whoa, what is happening in the scene?
Yeah, yeah. Osculation. Have you ever heard that word used before? Steve's line of like, "Oh, Laura, just one kiss, a moment of osculation." Pamela and Sally were reaching for the stars of that one because I was like, "Okay, let's type it in." And it does mean kissing, but we could also just use the word kissing.
I want to osculate you.
Yeah,
That does not sound romantic at all.
yeah, yeah. Like those God, those circular things that you use to like shape clay. Like it's kind of like it works like a stamp when you stamp down on clay and you make the shape based on the shape of the thing. I feel
Uh,
like putting that on a person's body, to me, that is what osculating sounds like.
yeah.
I don't know. That's just my
I,
thought.
you think of that, I think of, is it oscillating the fan when it rotates back and forth?
I think so, yeah.
That's what I'm thinking of when I hear the word osculate. So this is a very interesting term. Y'all did a great job writing this episode.
Yeah, God, so Pamela and Sally, they're going through some personal stuff right now, but we really hope to have them on soon because lots of questions, comments, compliments that we have about this episode. Another dessert line that made me laugh out loud in this scene here. Laura is just overwhelmed by Steve's romantic braggadocio. She says she has a headache. Steve says he can't prepare. Remember his pervy delivery of aspirin, baby? Like he just had the aspirin, baby.
That was the one cute line from Steve where I was like, okay, I can see how that would be funny and romantic to somebody if they liked you.
If they liked you. But she doesn't like him. It made me howl. Steve is the only non-consensual pervy creep that can make me laugh. That's a talent. Okay. Usually it's like, oh, you're a creep. I don't want anything to do with you. But if you're a creep who can make me laugh, that's conflicting. That's a talent on your part. You're that at that point, you're like in sociopath, psychopath territory.
But yeah, you're giving us full on Ted Bundy because I laugh and then I have those moments where I'm watching like this scene here and just looking up the setup. I'm like, this is funny. But then the adult side of me is like, Andrew, he's love bombing her. This is not okay.
And then Laura wants a divorce, and Steve is that exaggerated swaggerlicious walk that you're talking about that we love so much. And another line he says while he's doing that walk, "My manly ardor has frightened you." I get the impression that Sally and Pamela were English majors.
They had to be because when I heard ardor, I was like, what does that mean?
It's, you know what? I didn't even Google or Bing that. Let me do that right now.
Okay.
Define ardor, enthusiasm or passion. So again, we could just say enthusiasm or passion, but in the world of Pamela and Sally, they want to spruce it up, bring some intelligence to family matters. There's nothing wrong
They,
with
they use the Queen's English.
that. The monarchy, don't get me started on them and what they mean to people of color like us.
Yeah. We'll leave them alone. They had 100 years of bothering us to know more. And we'll just leave them alone for now.
I guess. So then we get to the moment where Steve buys he presents Laura with an $800 diamond carat ring, and this is for a fake marriage. And he reveals that this was from his stay away fund. This was money given to him by relatives who want him away from them as possible. I was like, where do I begin? Like, should I begin with the obsession that he has with Laura that is compromising her safety? Should I be concerned for Steve's family traumatizing him like that? Like that, I don't know about how did you feel about that line? Because that line was loaded to me.
That line was very loaded. Like I was telling you, this is the darkest scene for me in this entire show,
Yeah.
where we get literally this addressing of Steve being told to stay away from family, and they're paying him so they don't see him. So either something's really wrong and we are not addressing Steve's mental health issues, or we've also got this trauma that's coming from his family that's leading to more of this unhinged behavior that we're experiencing.
Yeah. It's what to do about somebody that you both feel bad for, but also you're like, wow, stay away from this person because they're exhibiting unhealthy behaviors. And woman, Laura, live your life. Um, we're about to get what my to my main course. I mean, what did you think? What did you think about when because this is the climax of the scene where um Laura clearly has hurt Steve's feelings. You see him sad, you see him affected. There are tears. I mean, I was getting a flashback to the quilt where the tears were just like, whoa, this got deep really quick. This just came out of nowhere. Tell me your thoughts.
The crocodile tears from Steve were terrible. I did not feel sorry for Steve at all in this scenario. I felt concern for Laura because she's at her breaking point. She has made it very clear. Now, and this is me as an adult thinking about this, but as I would watch this as a child, I wouldn't have thought of any of this at all. I probably would have fed into the scene of, oh my God, Steve is hurt. Laura, that was so harsh. It was too harsh, and it wasn't. Laura was very right to be very direct and straight and say, look, you know, I don't like you. You have known this. This is a project. This is not something serious. You have constantly loved bombed me. And then you make a statement to pull at my heartstrings. It wasn't tears of sadness. I get the feeling that Laura felt trapped. She felt trapped. This man spent $800 on a ring, and well, this kid. And it's like, we're seeing the culmination of this bad experience that Laura's having, and it's only getting worse as it goes on.
Very frustrating. I agree with you completely. Literally, when I felt the mood change to just complete sadness, when I felt that the scene was going to be leaning towards sympathy towards Steve, I literally wrote on my notes very aggressively, Jesus fucking Christ. That's what I said. Jesus fucking Christ. Because I knew it would happen. I knew we would get to that moment. Uh, this is also a reflection of not only the quilt in terms of the random tears, but also the French date with Steve and Laura from last season, where Laura was pressured by her family into thinking that having a mercy date with Steve is just a regular part of life. Um, Laura harshly rejecting someone like Steve is necessary at this point. I don't care if he cries, whatever. He's been told no so many times, like you said. So if you don't just come down and just say very bluntly to the point of coming across as mean that, hey, get lost, I don't want you, then what else can you do? Like, what else can you do? And it's even more frustrating to hear the audience feel bad for Steve. They're buying into this. I think Rich Carell like rehearsed with them to have that reaction. Um,
Mhm.
yeah, it's just awful. And how Rich and Sally and Pamela handled the transition from Laura wanting to do nothing with Steve to suddenly being like in tears, very emotionally touched. You know, when he says his bullshit like, "Oh, Laura, you're a star. I know I can't reach, but it doesn't hurt to try." it, I mean, he's literally advocating for no consent in that one line there. And we are supposed to be okay with that as the audience. I just screamed. Well, not, well, you know what? I didn't. Well, actually, you know what? I did. I did have a moment where I screamed in frustration because I know we're going to get to more of this. He has another line that particularly frustrated me. The no strings attached, just the one to my heart line. It was like Laura does not need to be responsible for hurting the feelings of a boy she rightfully does not want to go out with. That is her right.
It is her right, and she has the right to express that.
But we're not acknowledging that. Anything else from this very frustrating scene that you liked
Um,
or didn't
you know,
like?
there's just there was so much in that just interaction with the two of them that it really tapped me emotionally in that scene. I get the frustration. There was one moment that did make me laugh, however, while this was happening.
What?
So after Steve says the line about, oh, there's no stranger except the one that's attached to my heart, and he turns around and walks out the door, the next cut of Laura is not the same cut of him walking out the door. If you notice, Steve is actually still standing there as Laura is crying, where 2 seconds ago they showed him walking out the door.
Oh, yeah. Not surprised by that lack of continuity. There was on IMDb some trivia point about a lack of continuity in the scene where Laura fainted in the classroom. I forgot what the details of it was. But yeah, that's becoming a thread of Family Matters where the editors are just not clearly paying attention to that lack of continuity. I mean, look, I mean, to be fair, the casual viewer back then is not going to notice, but to us, if we're closely rewatching this show, it's like, wait a minute, what? Laura's hands were this way when she fainted, and now it's this way when we come back to her. Like, what's going on? Like, how did her hands go from her arm to her ass? What's going on?
There's some weird stuff where I'm like, it would have been so inconsequential if they hadn't had his whole head in the shot. Where I'm like,
Yeah.
so y'all just were not paying attention at all.
Pretty much. I'm actually gonna look up this IMDb trivia about the faint now that I'm thinking about it, and I want to know if it like sparks any memory for you because I didn't remember this at all when I watched the episode. So in the classroom, when Laura finds out who she's been partnered with in the marriage project, she faints. Then Steve comes in and says, "Give my wife some air." In this shot, Laura is shown passed out with her hands crossed on her stomach. In the next shot, her arms are stretched out on each side, not crossed. So, yep, a
Oh,
lot of lack of continuity moments like that in Family Matters.
damn, I didn't even notice that.
Hmm. Yeah, no, I mean, unless you have anything else for this scene, I'm good to go. Oh, actually, you know what? My last thing about this scene, even though Laura's shirt was disgusting, I loved her sneakers.
Yes, her sneakers were super cute.
Yeah, yeah, like just fresh white, like Jordan style kind of kicks. I'm not a sneakerhead, but even I am just like, oh yeah, those are some nice shoes that you might not have the next day because it's Chicago.
And because you're fainting, Laura.
Yeah, fainting in Chicago with those $200 sneakers. Good luck getting home. God.
Now, this next scene, I have to ask you before we even get into it, how did it make you feel?
Well, um, the frustration that I felt in the last scene we just recapped, it just basically carried over into this scene. This is Laura and Harriette on the back porch, and Harriette just not being a good mother at all, making Laura think that, like, oh yeah, sure, Steve is annoying, Steve is a pest, you don't like him, but you know, it's nice to have a man who loves you, right? So just go for it.
It's the literal version of me making my joke about I'm stalkable. I don't want someone to actually stalk me.
Yep.
And Harry is just like, oh, but it's love that he watches you from outside your window. No, it's not, Mom.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I think the first reaction that I had, like when Laura tells her mom that she thinks she hurt Steve's feelings, just from that, without even Harriet speaking yet, I was like, who cares? Who cares?
Right? I was hoping that Harriet was gonna like empower Laura and be like, so what? You don't need to have this guy around. Get him out of your life. Like I was waiting for that strong Harriet that we've seen so many times. But I feel like her the way she was written in the scene, she was so defeated by Carl
Yeah.
that she didn't really care what was happening to Laura.
She was very self-centered, all warped up into being neglected by Carl, that she just wrongfully used that negative energy to Laura. And it's two different situations. We're talking about a consensually married husband and wife having, you know, a typical moment in their marriage where quality time may not be the best and they could work on that. You have that. And then you have another situation where it's two kids. One is non-consensually stalking and obsessing over the other. The other person is clearly letting them know that, like, you know, get lost, I don't want you. But yet, because, oh, I'm being loved, so fine, stalk away.
They're like, love can't hurt you. You can just have all this love and just be happy that he still doesn't take you to hockey games. It didn't make sense. With how well written everything else is in this episode, I'm like, did they really write this?
What's the fucking message? What message are we displaying here? Um, no care in the world about Laura's feelings.
I
If
mean,
someone
we've
loves
got,
you, end of story.
yeah, we've got the history. We've got what Laura being told by Harriet, was it before? Sometimes you just got to go out on a bad date. When no, she didn't have to. Like, you guys are just doing this, and then they make fun of her at dinner with the wedding march song. And nobody has taken Laura's concerns seriously, even though they've all heard her vehemently say she doesn't want to be with this person.
Now, I do admire Laura for pushing back in this scene. Like
Mhm.
when Harriet is like, "Oh, Laura, come on, see it from Steve's side." Laura is like, Mom, he bought me an 8 foot tall giraffe. You know? So you see efforts by Laura to defend her side. That like, hey, like this kid is annoying, he's a problem. Like, I'm sorry. Like I can't help how I feel about him.
Yeah, like I wish she would have been like, y'all don't even like being around Steve. Maybe bring it back to home.
Yeah, it's weird. It's like, oh my God, we're so annoyed of Steve, rest of the family. But when it comes to Laura being affected by it, it's like, look at her. Isn't that funny? Like, that's such a weird dynamic.
Oh my God, Laura's in her Meg Griffin stage.
Wait, are you talking about Family Guy?
Yes.
So explain that reference to me because I haven't watched Family Guy in years.
So Meg in Family Guy is like the redheaded stepchild that you don't want involved in the family, but she's there. It's kind of like, oh, get out of here, Meg. You just are ruining everything. And that's kind
Ugh,
of what they're doing to Laura.
ugh. Laura is poor Meg Griffin. Years, like what, 10, almost 10 years before Family Guy went on the air. Ay,
Yeah.
ay, ay. And of course, you have Carl listening in on the conversation, and it takes this moment, this weird moment of Harriet giving this bad advice to Laura. Instead of Carl, we were hoping that he would be the parent to be like, wait a minute, what the hell is my child into? Like, maybe we should get some help for her. No, all Carl is thinking, same plane as Harriet. Aw, I think I haven't been attentive toward my wife. I should fix that.
That, okay, that moment officially starts where I call this my junk train
Yeah,
because
okay.
everything from this point forward is junk for me. I was so frustrated that Carl was out there just, oh, I'm just going to listen in to my daughter going through a stalker situation, even though I'm a police officer and I'm supposed to fight stalking. And then, oh, my wife, she's just so hurt because I didn't buy her flowers. As opposed to him being an adult and walking into the room and saying, Laura, are you safe? And Harriet, I'm sorry. Like we got nothing.
We didn't. I mean, that's it for me for this scene. I got nothing else but, fuck Harriet for not giving the right mom advice. Fuck Carl for not seeing through the whole Harriet romantic thing and looking out for his daughter. Just fuck the parents in this scene. That is what this scene is called. Fuck the parents. Not meet the parents. Fuck the parents.
Fuck the parents. Okay, I support that. Scene 7 is fuck the parents scene.
There you go. There. Anything else for you?
No, it's time to go back to school. We've got our next scene where everybody's back in the classroom. This is still part of my junk, unfortunately, because even at this scene, we don't get a clearing up of this terrible situation. So what did you think was going to happen when the scene started? Did you enjoy that we finally got some lines from Maxine?
So that was, I mean, it was fine. It was fine. I do think that overall Maxine should have gotten a lot better in this episode. If I recall correctly, she gives her marriage report in front of the class. She angrily accuses her partner Mark Healy of cheating with an older girl, a ninth grader. So it's clearly established that they're in middle school. Um, I mean, when have you ever heard a ninth grader being described in the same way that Rachel was described compared to Steve Webster back in the last episode?
Never, but the way she said it was so funny. I'm like, older girl. I'm like, what are you talking about?
A ninth grader. She's a cougar. Oh God. Anyway, I thought we were losing the point of Miss Steuben's lesson when Maxine got up to spoke. I felt like she was strictly focused on um the career aspects, the financial budgeting aspects of marriage, and because you're dealing with puberty stricken, emotionally all over the place middle school kids, of course they're going to take it to the emotional and treat it like, oh, you need to be committed to me, not cheat on me with a ninth grader.
Yeah, at this point, I don't even think Miss Steuben knew what she was doing with this experiment anymore because it just all fell to pieces. But we get Mark's epic line, which I thoroughly enjoy. Mark, was he the same Mark that took Laura out on her date when she had her date to the dance?
He seems somewhat familiar. When I looked at him, I was
Uh,
like, wait a minute, was he on a previous episode in the first season? He seemed like he could have been a date of Laura's. He almost reminded me of Bumper Robinson, the drummer
mm.
from Eddie's rock band in the season one finale. Um, Clearly, he wasn't that important because literally all he said was jerk while throwing a ball of paper at Maxine after she badmouthed him in front of the class. Not surprisingly, I mean, I can't find any contact information on Mr. whatever his name was, Clint something. But yeah, no, I mean what do you think was more memorable, Mark Healy's jerk or girl from the candidate who was like, "Oh my God, I love you, Eddie."
Okay, Mark Healy's jerk is funnier,
Yeah,
but that girl did steal the scene for Eddie.
yeah. Oh God, I want to walk by her on the street one day. Oh my God, you were a girl.
Can you imagine if she's like, no more photos. I'm tired of the paparazzi coming after me. I'm not that girl anymore.
Oh, no, you are always that girl. You are girl. Oh God. So Steve gets up to present his marriage report, and first thing I noticed as he was getting up was Laura has like a green shirt and green sock matching thing going on.
She is dressed like a church mom going to like the church social. Like, I don't get this outfit. It looks like it should be on an older adult, or it's like mother of the bride at like a terribly designed wedding because it's just
Really?
weird. Yeah,
I
it doesn't look like it's for a kid.
I got I got a different world slash more casual in living color fly girl vibe when she gave me like the green sock match and the green shirt match. That's what like it just felt like I would see a lot of young girls back in the 90s dressed that way. So that's interesting that you say that. Um, what else did you find for about this scene? Yeah, I mean, how about we just get into like Steve's marriage report? What did you think about his presentation and the fact that he, decided to just class it up and just matter of factly say that Laura was a fine specimen?
I think that Steve, I think that Steve still missed the point
Oh,
of actually getting the idea of I need to leave her alone. Um,
yeah.
I feel that Steve just placed the cover that, most people who are in a toxic relationship will put over something to say, oh, she's a fine specimen. It was great. As opposed to, hey, like, I learned a lot about myself through this that I need to stop pursuing people who don't want me.
Yeah, but unfortunately, you're not going to get that deep message from a 14-year-old kid who's traumatized by his entire family not wanting him. I wish, but no, he's got some work to do. Actually, I felt differently. I gave Steve props. I thought that with the emotional fallout from the last scene, he could have easily been like, well, Laura rejected me, but no. One positive thing about his obsession with Laura is that at the end of the day, especially when it comes to a public presentation of some sort, he will give her flowers. And the audience, the studio audience, clearly agreed with his sentiment. I mean, even though they buy stupid things like Steve's whole emotional manipulative thing in the last scene, they gave him a round of applause. They thought that it was very classy of him to say those kind things about Laura.
Yeah, they saw, and it just, I feel like opportunities were very, very, very bigly missed in this scene
Yeah,
because we could have gotten a dynamic of Laura Urkel, who, yes, is a kid, but is still very smart. Could have been like, hey, I learned that some relationships don't work out. Something. I still admire Laura. Let me give her an A. Something that at least made a little accountability for the pressure he was putting on her the entire time.
understandable. Understandable. What did you think about Laura getting up and making her report, where she both calls out Steve's annoying habits? She literally makes it honest that he's a pest. But she also said that, you know what? He's a caring husband, and because of that, he deserves an A. What do you think about that?
It can get out of here too. It was bad. It can get right up out of here. I feel like that really took away Laura's power, having to sum it up with something positive for this person who put her through such a negative experience. I do feel like it really, again, and I'm expecting deep messages as an adult that we're not going to get in this time period. But I was just like, damn, I feel so bad for Laura. And this
Yeah.
is just acting. Imagine women in real life and the crap they have to go through. And then at the end of it, you still have to say something positive so you don't get classified as this mean or angry, bitter person.
Yeah, that's the unfortunate livelihood that women have to go through. Men have all the freedom to be tough, to be mean, to be cheating, conniving sons of bitches, but you see a woman try to do the same thing, and she's just stigmatized and written off till the end of the earth. So it's always the woman that has to, at the end of the day, consider the man's feelings, spare his feelings, to make sure that she, comes out with a good reputation at the end. So yeah, it's very shameful. I'm actually surprised by your response because usually I'm the cynical, bittery asshole of the two of us. So I thought that you were going to be like, oh, sweet that Laura and Steve have these nice things to say about each other because I actually feel the way I thought you would felt. I thought that, oh, you know, thank you, Laura, for being honest about Steve's annoying habits. Yes, she could have brought up that he needs to learn that no means no. That's an important factor in marriage. But I don't know. I just thought that it was a nice mixture of being honest about the unfortunate quality of Steve while also acknowledging that, yeah, at the end of the day, even though he needs therapy, he does mean well. He does have sort of a heart of gold, and I will give him patience. So, in my weird way, even though I want Steve to get the fuck off of Laura, I thought that them coming together in that unified way to say nothing but good things about each other to the class, to, make sure they have a good grade, I think it was, dare I say, sweet, Andrew.
Wow.
I know that's tough for me to say because um my heart has been nothing but not angel, devil's dust lately.
Devil's Dust. That sounds like a very fun time in a club.
If there isn't a club out there that's called Devil's Dust, we need to start that business right now.
We do, and don't bring your drugs in here, people. We'll supply them.
Oh, because at Devil's Dust, you can't get any better than the Devil's drugs.
You can't, because the devil wants you to have fun. He knows what fun is.
Yeah.
Um, I the one other thing that I did, how do I say it? Because I was watching it and I was like, I do like that Laura hinted at the annoyances and she didn't like go on a rant, but I kind of wish she did.
She
Or
she
I
had
kind of,
she had every right to.
she did. She had every right to. I just wish she didn't give him an A. He didn't deserve an A.
Okay.
And as soon as she said, oh, he gets an A, that just reinforced all the negative behaviors he was doing.
It falls in line with Mercy Date. Like, okay, he's being all non-consensual up in this bitch, but I feel pressure to go easy on him. So sure, I'll give him an A. Why not? And then of course Steve freaks out. Snookums, Snookums, you do love me. So that's where it kind of we do it like a 180 or 360 or whatever it's called. I go from sympathizing with Steve to being like, oh, okay, yeah, he hasn't learned anything.
Yes, there was no learning in this situation whatsoever.
Yeah.
Um, this scene here, it didn't have anything else for me. That was it for me.
All right, that's it for me too. I believe we are at our final scene in the living room.
We are final scene in the living room. We got Harriette and Carl walks in, and I love Harriet's, oh, who are you? I love it. I wish she would have done more.
Oh, like really told Carl off, like you motherfucking fat diehard son of a bitch, you mother.
No, I was not going that far. Whoa.
You fucking has been. Nobody cares about you. They care about Bruce Willis, you motherfucker.
Okay, now those are fighting words. That is a lot. I would have been like, if I was Carl walking out, I would have just walked right back out the house, like, oh my
Yeah.
God, this marriage is done.
Look. If it's between Reginald Johnson and Bruce Willis, I'm choosing Reginald all day, every day. Bruce Willis, I'm sure he has had some nice qualities about him. I think from the get-go, he's always seemed like a not so genuine guy to me. But Reginald, like from the beginning, you understand that there's like a very comforting avuncular quality about him. So for the record, Reginald, you are better than Bruce Willis. You should have been the movie star.
Yes, you should have been Die Hard, should have been all about you. I would have watched it 40 more times.
Mhm. I love this scene. I knew we were going to get a Carl and Harriet moment. How did you feel going in knowing that they were going to have their talk? I mean, frankly, I wish that it were at the back porch because it would have given me that warm, nostalgic vibe all the way back to episode 2 of last season. Um, there's just something about Carl and Harriet coming together. in moments like these that just really, really, really get to me.
It was a beautiful scene. It was fun to see them talk and like, okay, we're gonna get some kind of narrative wrapped up here where hopefully we'll see some change in Carl. I personally loved the end of the scene with the ring. I thought it was fun, and I like seeing Carl and Harriet dance and interact with each other.
Oh yeah, yeah. The dancing was great. Yeah, so they talked over Carl not being attentive to his wife's needs. Carl uses the word ignoramus to describe his
Ignorant.
behavior.
Yes.
Big words this episode. Big words. I mean, God, that sounds almost like a character from Gundam or Transformers.
I can see Gundam. I can definitely see Gundam being a
Yeah.
character named in Ignoramus.
So ignoramus means ignorant or stupid person. As Pamela and Sally went to vocabulary school, so they had that happen again. And then in this scene, Carl tells Harriet, "Oh, I thank God we're together, and now it's time to start thanking you." So Carl really has the audience on his side. They're awing, they'll fall for anything at this point. And you loved the ring part because why again? When Carl gave Harriet a ring as a sort of like romantic gift of thank you?
I love the ring part because Urkel scammed him. That's what I love about it. The price that Carl paid. So Urkel paid $800 for the ring. Carl paid Urkel $1,000 for this ring. And that made me laugh.
That's quite a markup.
I mean,
I was
Urkel's
confused.
smart.
He's smart. He is smart. I will give him that. I was confused by Carl giving the ring to Harriet for the Chez Josephine date. Is like a date night ring a thing? Because either that or Carl is just proposing to Harriet all over again. I would think that like if you're gonna give a gift to your wife, like, oh, we haven't spent enough quality time together lately, it would be like a necklace, it would be like a bracelet, a necklace with like a heart on it, but a ring, it just seems like, oh, hey, let's renew our vows. I'm sorry for not spending time with you.
Now that you say that, I would want a necklace or a bracelet because you can have more gems in it. Don't give me this dinky ring. I need gems, gems. I need to know that this came from the Congo.
Don't give me that ring pop bullshit.
Which, by the way, I had a ring pop the other day. They're still delicious.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Hurt my teeth, but still good.
I worry that like the more I suck on it, like the more it'll get like sticky around my finger. Like because you have the saliva, you got the dripping candy juice on your finger. Like, I mean, I get enough sweat from my ring finger being like very tight on my finger, being very snug. So I don't know if I want on top of that a ring pop where it just feels like glue on my finger every day.
If you're a 90s kid and you've had a ring pop or a push pop, if you like them, you know your fingers get sticky. It's worth it, though. It's so worth it.
That and Jolly Ranchers. Jolly Ranchers will make you sticky if you don't properly put it in your mouth the right way. If you if you do the stupid thing where it's like, oh, I'm gonna suck on it a few times and then hold it, like forget it. That thing is not coming off your fingers. I did
Okay,
that
I have
before.
never done that, but it sounds like you have experience with that, John.
I've done that. Family members have done that. Like you just like
Really?
I'm gonna save it for later, and then you just hold it, and then it just sticks to your fingers. Like that's stupid.
Oh my God. Yeah. And I hate having sticky fingers. Oh my God.
Yeah, because your family wouldn't like your parents wouldn't let you have more than one Jolly Rancher like a week. So you had to conserve.
Oh my God. I was the person, as soon as I put the Jolly Rancher in my mouth, I crunch it. And I'm like, okay, I'm ready for another.
How can you crunch it? They're so chewy. They're so sticky and chewy.
I mean, just get it between your back molars and just push down and boom, it breaks into pieces.
I don't have the strongest back molars. I don't know about that. I don't know, but I'll be open-minded. We'll see sometimes. So I'm getting kind of tired of like the flower patterns that the ladies seem to be wearing on their shirts. So Harriet, I think she has like flowers and weeds like really growing out of the shirt that she's wearing in this scene. Harriet's wearing flower patterns. Rachel's wearing flower patterns. It's just flower, flower, flower lately.
They're very floral. Floral prints everywhere. I don't get it. I don't understand why. I find a lot of them to be overwhelming.
Yeah, yeah. And Carl and Harriet, we already discussed them slow dancing together to Strangers in the Night. The instrumental version, by the way, on the cassette player, not the Frank Sinatra version, because Family Matters can't pay for that. But yeah, their chemistry just warms my heart to no end. Audience feels the same way. How did you feel about that bird's eye zoom out shot of them dancing as like the credits came on? Like I just thought it was like a nice view.
It was a beautifully set up scene. Everything in this scene worked. I loved it. That tape recorder, that is the most unrealistic audio sound ever. It filled up the entire space. I was like, they could have made it a little more believable, but
Yeah.
it was still really awesome.
Yeah, a stereo system would have probably been more believable than that little tiny cassette player. Now, I noticed something that as the camera zoomed out to that bird's eye view, as it zoomed out, I saw a piece of something to the left side of the scene. It looked like maybe a little piece of one of the cameras was in the scene and then had to quickly back out of the shot. I think that's what happened.
Okay, cameraman, y'all are making some mistakes today.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh
Get
my
your shit
God.
together.
I'm gonna have to watch that again. So like I love seeing stuff like that. So I'm gonna have to watch it again just to notice that because I didn't notice that.
That's it for me. You have anything else?
That is it for me. This episode is officially done.
All right. Explain that Michelin star rating. How do we do this?
All right, so hang on, let me pull up my notes one more time just so I
Yep.
can make sure I give you guys some clear information. So our rating system is 0 stars to 3 stars. 0 stars, this means this episode was not worth watching. It wasn't good. It didn't taste good. We're not even going to give it a second thought. 1 star, this good was, I'm sorry, this episode was good in respect to the season. When I say in respect to the season, out of what we've seen so far, was it still something you enjoyed watching? And would you possibly watch it again? 2 stars, it's an excellent episode. It was worth your time watching. You don't feel like you wasted your time. You got something from this that you're going to take away and you enjoyed it. And then 3 stars, it's exceptional. It encompasses everything you love about the show, everything you love about the journey, and you want to experience it again.
What's your star?
My star for this is going to be a 1 star. This episode, it's a 1 star. It's good. It is good. There are just some glaring issues I have with the dynamic of Steve and Laura, some of the mistakes with the camera, the continuity issues. There's some things in this episode that if they were cleaned up and then maybe changed just a bit, it could be really good.
I got the exact same rating for me, a 1 star. I had some reliably laugh out loud moments from Urkel. I will always love the chemistry between Carl and Harriet. I mean, yeah, Carl was being an ignorant ass earlier, but there's nothing like when they come together at the end. They love each other. They come to a consensus that just warms my heart. So if you want your basic heartwarming moments, your basic laughs, it is a decent episode to watch. I would say I would not pull away from it. I would give it a chance. Um, and the signature Rich Corral pacing. I mean, we didn't really say it much, but we'll say it here. The guy knows how to pace scenes. He really knows how to keep the momentum going. So with all that together, I think it's a decent enough episode to, get 22 or 23 minutes of your time. Where it becomes a factor of me not giving it a 2 or 3 star rating. I mean, it's just annoying this returning theme already of Laura giving in to Steve's non-consensual obsession, feeling like she has to be responsible for his hurt feelings whenever she just doesn't give in to him. Um, and if that becomes a persistent theme in later episodes, which I'm sure it will be, it will heavily affect my rating. So that's where I'm at. I will give it a solid 1 Michelin star.
I'm here for it. 1 star. Yeah, I think we are on the same page here. 100%.
There you go. Well, hey, that was season 2, episode 3.
Yes. Episode 3 of 2 episodes, technically.
Yeah. God, I'm getting a headache just thinking about all that. Yeah, no, thank you so much, dear listener, for joining us. As always, you can subscribe, rate, review The Delicious Recap wherever you get your podcasts, thedeliciousrecap@gmail.com. If you have any thoughts, questions, comments, concerns about what you liked, what you hated about this episode, we'd love to hear from you. You can follow The Delicious Recap on Facebook, Instagram, Threads, TikTok, YouTube, Reddit, Patreon. How can they follow you, Andrew? The DoorDash uncle, you?
So you can follow me on TikTok. I am your door dashing uncle. If you search Uncle DoorDash, which I did today, you're going to get somebody else. So don't search Uncle DoorDash because I don't know who that individual is. Um,
Wait,
just
wait, were
search
you actually
AJ
thinking?
Vandertunt.
Wait, were you actually considering like renaming yourself Uncle DoorDash?
No, so I wasn't going to name myself Uncle DoorDash, but people have commented, "Oh, you're Uncle DoorDash." And I'm like, "No, I'm not. That is not my name." I'm like,
Yeah.
because if you search that, you're not going to find me. Just search in Vandertunt, Vandrtunt, Vandertunt. Now, all my pages are still active on all social media platforms. So whichever one you go to, they are active. But I am not actively interacting with some of those things. So if you do want to reach me personally, TikTok is the way to go.
Our next episode, season 2, episode 4. For some reason, it's called Flash Pants. And the original air date is October 5th, 1990. Can you guess why it's called Flash Pants? I don't know.
So I thought it was a typo because I was looking ahead at the episode list and I'm like, they gotta mean Flash Dance. But no, it's Flash Pants. And I did not read any description, so I don't know what this one's about.
Yeah, I'm not gonna read it either until like we watch it and talk about it. So I'm curious. It could be a takeoff on Flash Dance. So I don't know. Alrighty. Can you sign us off in a way that reflects the mood of this episode?
So today's episode was an encompassing of us watching Laura go through a very traumatic situation. But the one thing I can tell you, she didn't have a lick of plate on that food when she came to dinner. So there was no deliciousness ringing for her.